everybody, and welcome to the February 7th Trips and Traps. Andy Serling, joined by Eric Donovan.
4 races to bring you on this week's show, and we'll start off with the 7th race from January 30th, the State Bred. 2 of the then allowance optional claimer fillies or mares going a mile.
Well, I guess Great Gracie Dane showed that she still has a little something left in the tank. Unfortunately, she didn't get a chance to break with the field. She legitimately broke a good 4 or 5 lengths behind the field. You'll see how far she settles back. The other horse we want to talk about is City Gone Wild, who I like the aggressive riding from Wilmar Garcia, and given that he had the inside post, there wasn't a lot he could do, but unfortunately, for him at least, a couple of other horses went pretty hard, and City Gone Wild ended up getting involved in what was a very, very fast pace, which may have helped Great Gracie Dane, but it would have helped her more if she broke with the field.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, she broke slow, and then was kind of, fell back a little bit on her own almost, a couple more lengths there, but we see the contested pace up on the front end here between the inside horse, City Gone Wild, who is the survivor of the pace battle, if you will. I mean, City Gone Wild does fade to finish 6th in here, but the 2 other horses that are involved, Marcy and 100 Acre Wood, 2 and 3 wide 100 Acre Wood backed off a little bit there, but Marcy and 100 Acre Wood are going to be last and second to last.
Yeah, no, I actually thought she ran fairly well, and to me, she's kind of an interesting horse going forward from this. It's a tough thing when you have the inside. I'm not going to fault riders for being aggressive, because as we're going to see later in the show, unaggressive riding hurts more often than not, but I think maybe with a fairer trip, City Gone Wild could compete with this field. I think the question you have to ask yourself as we stop it, as Great Gracie Dane makes this 3-wide move, she ends up having some traffic. She'll end up steadying there, City Gone Wild in front. She'll end up steadying in some traffic and having to go to the rail in the stretch, Great Gracie Dane. You'll be able to see her, keep your eye on her as we finish the race up. What do you do with her going forward? Is this a signal that she's once again back to the old Great Gracie Dane, which is better than these horses? Was this a one-time thing? Because she really was an unlucky loser here, Eric. Yeah,
no doubt about it. I mean, and the rider here is, trying to be patient and not go wide and split horses a little bit there. I wonder, if in hindsight it would have been better off going wide, not having to deal with the traffic there. But nonetheless, you're right. This is a tough call for horse players because she is 7. Throughout her career, she's been pretty inconsistent. She's shown, glimpses of quality and then gone downhill before, then come back with good efforts. So, not the kind of horse that I could say definitely you'd want to bet back next time because of this trip. But you know what? You got to size her up against the competition, guess your, see what your price is, and then decide from there.
I think some of it also says, suppose she had broken fairly with the field and she had won this race by a couple of lengths, and let's say she runs a buyer speed figure 10 points, 12 points higher, somewhere in there. How does she look against the next race she's running at, coming off a sort of perfect trip win? Is she a little dressed up? But I think it's fair to evaluate her race and really say she probably could have finished 4 or 5 lengths easily ahead of where she finished. City Gone Wild, though, is more my kind of horse, a horse who was embroiled in a fast pace that doesn't look like she ran as well. She didn't have any trouble, per se, but she's a horse I'd love to see her in a race where the dynamics fit her style a little bit better.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, she's coming off now 2 consecutive 2 other than allowances against State Breds, where she's been, beaten pretty solid, 7 lengths in this effort, 5th beaten 14 the previous start, so she's nice and dirtied up.
Yeah, she is, and she had a bit of a trip in a race before that, an interesting race going forward.
All right, we'll talk about the second race now from January 31st. This is a claiming race, 12,500, 3 lifetime, 1 mile also for fillies.
I think the lesson from this race, Eric, there's Ms. Calabash, the horse we're talking about, and she's no superstar, and I'm not sure what field she may or may not beat in a subsequent start. But the lesson here, and we're going to see in the next race, is just because you break a little slowly doesn't mean that you have to throttle your mount the entire way. And what you have here, and the rider's already in a full Nelson. He's already really just hammer locked her down. It gets worse, and you're going to see him bobbing up and down during the race. It's almost comical, and even there he steadies. I mean, what is the plan? And you have a speed, she breaks a little slow, so what? Does that mean you don't want to be anywhere in the lead? They're crawling. Look at her bouncing up and down, Eric.
Yeah, the right thing to do here, I think, would have been to try to put a third, in behind the 7 horse there, Mary Ann's Kitchen. I see, I understand he had a little bit of trouble at the start, then there was a little traffic going in the turn here, but now you're 5 wide and you're restraining against the slow pace. I mean, this is just a recipe for disaster.
I mean, I don't want to laugh too hard, but this is kind of ridiculous. She's actually outside the eventual winner, Vade. I'm not sure where her race came from. It helped the one House on Toilsome Street hung, but I understand you're behind the 8 ball when you break a little slowly, but you know what? It's not always the end of the world, and when you exacerbate it by restraining your mount, she's a speed horse. What would have been wrong with asking her a little bit after she broke slow and see if she could cruise up? They went 25-1, 50-4 in this race, and I know the fractions are a little slow in the mile races, but nonetheless, I mean, Eric, she finished last. She probably wasn't winning anyway, but I don't think the ride gave her any chance whatsoever.
No, she had no chance whatsoever. You know, I would have said anything that he would have done besides what he did would have worked out better. If he dragged her back to last, I think she might have been better off here, or gone to the lead either way. But, you know, sitting in the middle of the pack 5 wide there against a slow pace, you're just not going to win any races on the inner track like that.
Good horses even, but more so with bad horses, cheaper horses, I should say. When have you seen a horse that's over-restrained during a race that when the rider asks them, they're just full of run?
Never.
Usually, when they ask them, they have nothing, which leads me to believe when you're riding speed horses, just restraining them for no reason. Now, Ms. Calabash is no superstar, and neither one of us can guarantee she's going to run particularly well next time out, but she does have some speed, and maybe if she breaks well and she's allowed to use her speed as a weapon, she'll have at least a little bit of a chance.
All right, we'll take a look now at the 4th race from February 1st round. This is a maiden special weight for fillies and mares going 6 furlongs. And a tale of 2 rides here, an unaggressive ride against an aggressive ride, and the aggressive ride wins.
Yeah, I mean, the 5 breaks more slowly than the 1. The 1 is the heavy favorite, Worldly Charm. The 5 is Red Minx, the eventual winner, a Todd Pletcher firster. The 1 breaks a step slow. The 5 breaks maybe a half slow. Instead of just sending up like you're supposed to with the 1, you have the rail, you have the speed, the lone speed. The rider seems to want to restrain the whole way, and it becomes almost just a comedy of errors. But Chris DiCarlo's on the 5 Red Minx, who had a very big weekend. He says, well, nobody wants it. I want it. So he asserts himself. She ends up winning. Worldly Manor was handed a race she couldn't lose, and she lost it because of I don't know what.
Yeah, unaggressiveness and that trouble right there. But I mean, if the rider had sent out of the gate, you're probably up inside the 2, holding your position down on the rail.
Well, you're in front. If he had said he would have been in front, they were crawling.
Yeah, instead of being in behind horses and the horse being steadied multiple times. And, you know, Chris DiCarlo, veteran rider, he's gotten some opportunities here on the inner track, and he's made the most of them here. I mean, he made the difference on this horse, Red Minx. I don't think a lax rider, a non-aggressive ride, this horse doesn't win, I don't think.
I absolutely agree with you, Eric. He made a difference. And this is really a very interesting race because you get to see the 2 kind of rides. One guy who was behind the 8 ball from the start and he seized the bull by the horns. The other one who really just broke a step slow, had a poster, you had to make a choice, had a horse who was clearly the speed, and instead gave up the advantage. Now, here's the question going forward. Do you really want the 1 Worldly Charm going forward? Because she's a bit of a coward in her races. She's shown that she's had her chances and not gotten it done. I don't know that she's that good a horse. I thought this was the right race for her because it wasn't a very good field, and that proved out in result. There wasn't a ton of speed. That proved out in result. And she didn't take advantage of that situation. In a tougher field, I want no part of her.
I agree. I don't know that I really want much part of her, you know, in a race that she doesn't look like, you know, an absolute cincher, you know, in order for her to win. So, you know, I think that she's a horse that is going to get overbet because of the obvious trouble that the horse was in, steadying a couple times down the backstretch there. Going to be a super short price, and I'm not sure the talent's there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm being a little hard on her. She's only had 3 starts, but I tend to agree with you, Eric. I don't know how much talent she really has. This was the race she was supposed to win. I think she'll be overbet because of this trouble in there. Look, maybe she finds a weaker field and she can be the speed, but the lesson to be learned is stop fooling around. When you have horses that have speed, especially in the inside post, you got to go. I mean, City Gone Wild went. I don't knock the rider. It didn't work out for him, but at least he went.
Okay, one more race to bring you. This is the 5th race from February 2nd. 20 kilometer, 2 lifetime, 4-year-olds and up.
Another situation, a cigar is just a cigar. Breaks on top. On top. This is the same rider we saw 2 races ago. Okay, he's not the absolute speed, but as Richie Migliori likes to say, you get your position going forward. Instead, the rider's getting his position going back, and you see him, he's being unaggressive, he's looking around. There's a lot of guys looking around. Did somebody drop $1? I want to know what they're looking for. Now, what ends up happening here is he looks around a little more, and next thing he knows, he's checked himself completely out of the race. He's out in the middle of the pack. It's only going to get worse from here, Eric, and here's a shocking result. These horses that are 1, 2, 3, guess where they finish?
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, they do. Shocking.
Shocking indeed. And you see where, you know, the 4 cigars, just a cigar is now almost 4 or 5 lengths off the lead, where this horse could have been sitting right where the 8 was.
He could have absolutely been sitting in a pocket, sitting 4th. He's shown before has the speed to at least put himself in the game. They run around the racetrack. It's not as anything exceptional happens, but a cigar is just a cigar. Gets beaten 3 lengths here, finishes 4th, is the only horse that actually makes up ground in this race. And I'm not saying you have to be sending everything out of the gate, but why is it that you are so insistent on losing position early? When has this worked out for anybody?
doesn't work out for anybody unless you get just a massive pace battle up front and a pace collapse. Other than that, it just doesn't work. And you see there, Cigar is just a Cigar finishing up with some interest there. A solid effort from a horse that was just ridden the wrong way.
I totally agree. I think he's a little bit improved. Listen, these are cheaper horses. They're not going to do anything special on the racetrack, but Cigar is a Cigar, just like any horse, deserves his best chance. And I think the point is, get yourself positioned. Stop being intent coming out of the gate of putting your horse somewhere. Let the race decide a little bit more. Once again, a lot going on here. We can always use your help. It's Trips and Traps at NYRAInc.com.
Thanks for watching.